All right, I think we're live. Amazing. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Welcome to the PM Therapy Live podcast. And we are going to get started very soon, but just want to make sure that you people can hear us okay. So if you can just let us know, say hello in the chat, and where you're calling in from, that will be helpful while we just get set up here. All right. I can start. I am calling in from Toronto, Canada. Mike, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from southern England, close to Winchester, the ancient capital of the country, before London came in and stole our thunder. Um, yeah, and it's bright
All
and
right.
sunny here, which is nice.
Nice, nice. So, how far is Winchester from London?
Oh, it's about 50, 60 miles. It's not far. I mean, you're in North America. Every distance is a long way.
Yeah.
you know, so we're kind of next door to London in your terms, but no, we're about. I mean, it's about an hour on the train.
All right. I
So
had no idea that
it's
that
a
was
good.
the former capital of London, of
So
England.
sorry.
I said I
Yeah,
had no
it's
idea that that was the former capital of England.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of like the capital. I mean, the concept of capital has changed over the years. Not every country has a legal capital, I think. But no, at one time Winchester was where all the action was in old England. But for a long, long time since William the Conqueror, so about 1,000 years, we've had London as a capital. We're fine.
Yeah.
I grew up in
Amazing.
London, so I've got an affiliation to London.
Nice, nice, nice. Amazing. Yeah. By the way, let us know. I know people are going to be trickling in, but let us know in the chat, where you're calling in from. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and get started. So today we're talking about the PM role in 10 years, better, worse, or just different, right? So that's the topic today. And I'm really excited to talk about this. Project management has gone through several waves. Like there's been Agile 2.0, digital transformation, COVID, remote work, now AI. So, what does this mean? Like, I want us to look forward 10 years, not too far into the future, but just 10 years from now. So
It's quite a
2025.
long way with the rate of change we've got at the
Yeah,
moment. I mean, it's probably quite easy to do 2, 3 years, and it might be quite easy to do 50 years, but 10 years is tricky. You've set
yeah,
a
I
difficult
know.
task for us.
I know. Yeah, and that's why I actually picked that, because it's not too far off, but it's close enough, to matter, right? So it's going to
Yeah.
be an interesting conversation. I would love to get into this, but I'm really excited about today's guest. I mean, many of you might know Mike, but for those of you that don't know who Mike Clayton is, Mike, could you introduce yourself and tell us
Yeah,
a bit about yourself?
sure. So Mike Clayton, I guess I'm best known for online PM courses, onlinepmcourses.com. It's where I, basically sell online project management courses for project managers, primarily to get people into the profession and for kind of early stage development. Um, I guess my biggest audience is on YouTube, where every Thursday, including today, I release a video about project management, the online PM courses channel. So there must be well over 600 videos on there now, covering pretty much every aspect of project management. So it's a great free learning resource for their profession, and that's kind of what I want it to be. About 100, I think we're coming up on 150,000 subscribers, so really happy with that. So really, I'm a scientist of old, a project manager for a large chunk of my career, and then for the last 20 odd years, I really focused on training, educating, communicating, largely around project management. I've really focused in on project management because that's my background since, I guess, 2015, when I decided to really start online PM courses and make project management the center of everything I do.
Nice, amazing. Yeah, so Mike's YouTube channel is a great resource. I've been a huge fan of Mike, so I'm so excited to have him on the show. The other thing that Mike did not mention is that he's an author. I just found out before the show that he's authored about 15 books. Okay, so and
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
getting some tips on how to do one book. So Mike is
yeah.
also a prolific author. All
Yeah,
right.
plenty about project management, but the latest is behind me there. It's about negotiation skills. But all the books I write are useful for project managers, whether it's negotiation skills, influencing, managing your own time and managing your stress, and another couple coming next year. So yeah, I enjoy writing. As I say, communicator and educator. That's what I think of myself as now.
Amazing. All right, so now let's get into the show. So, we're talking about the PM role in 10 years, and I'm just going to break down some of the, I guess, subtopics, right? What I'm hoping that we can cover. So just briefly, I want to talk about tools, PM tools in about 10 years, methodologies in about 10 years, the PM certifications, even the PMP in 10 years, what projects will look like in 10 years in terms of project complexity, the PM craft in 10 years, and the nature of the PM job in 10 years, right? So these are the things I'm hoping that we can cover. So let's jump right in. So PM tools in 10 years. Mike, what are your thoughts here?
I think 10 years, we can be reasonably confident that every PM tool that is thriving and on sale in 10 years, maybe not every tool that's being used, but every tool that's on sale in 10 years will have AI deeply embedded in it. Some may still be legacy tools which have AI bolted on, as many tools do. So, like using APIs to whatever the future of Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini are. But I think every tool we use, every tool, you pull off the shelf, every software as service type tool, cloud-based tool, will be centered around AI doing a lot of the work for us. I think we'll see more of those tools kind of driving backwards down the value chain from where a lot of project management tools are really focused, which is helping us deliver stuff, helping us monitor what's going on, manage day-to-day risks, report on things, all the way down to the portfolio selection. I mean, there's a lot going on now in the project world. People talking about the importance of portfolio prioritization and selection, and I think that's absolutely as it should be. Part of my background really is in program management, and back in the 90s, Deloitte, we were banging on about sensible portfolio selection then. Since then, we've had some fantastic thinkers, really contributing good stuff. People like Steve Jenner writing about portfolio management. We've got, great thinkers at the moment, people like, Stuart Easton, and a business around portfolio management. But I think where we now see agile tools providing backlog grooming capabilities, the ability to look at different modules, different work packages in old language, different user requirements, and being able to sort out which ones deserve their place and which ones have dropped away. I think we're going to see portfolio grooming tools, the ability, rather than, we're starting to see organizations move from an annual strategy planning process, and on the back of it, the ones that are really smart saying, well, what does that mean for our portfolio projects, programs, initiatives? I think we'll start to see, live portfolio grooming, and that will be possible because the AI will be able to monitor what's going on and tell us in no uncertain terms whether or not the current portfolio is going to be deliverable, is going to be optimized, and helping us to re-optimize possibly on a monthly basis. I don't know what the timescale will be, whether we'll literally have 2-week portfolio sprints. I doubt it somehow, but I think real-time portfolio grooming is going to become thing. And I think the other big kind of aspect of tools, and I don't know what tools we will have to serve it, but if you remember, if anyone who's listening to this remembers back to the early 2000s, the 2000 aughts, whatever you call them, we saw a big rush, certainly here in the UK, and I'm assuming in a lot of other places too, a big rush to productize the enterprise. The idea of projectize the enterprise. The idea that it became very fashionable to do everything, to look at everything we do and use project management tools to help us do it. And I think what we're going to start seeing is, again, agile has become so pervasive now outside of its original wheelhouse of software engineering, that we might start to see productization of the enterprise, the idea of everything that we do in the organization being converted into a product that we can then develop on a cycle and keep going, including processes, especially if AI continues to develop at the rate it's been going at. Once we get into the swing of really embedding and understanding AI, then we can start to upgrade our agents, upgrade the tools that we're using to run the business as well as to run our projects on a rapid basis. And I think productization might be the word, or a word similar to it might be the word that gets used. So I think that's what's going to happen to tools. They'll be focusing on, they'll all be AI native tools. They'll be focusing on much more granular portfolio shaping at one end, and at the other end, the kind of tiny end, everything will be treated as a product. So that's my prediction. I have absolutely no idea whether that's right or not. It's, as I say, I think it's quite easy to kind of forecast what things will be like in a year's time, because it will be a bit more than we've got now, and I think it will be really easy to guess, to throw things at the wall for 50 years time, because almost anything is possible that we can imagine now. But what of the things we can imagine today will be available in 10 years time is a bit harder, I think. What are your thoughts?
I was gonna get into that, but just quickly, can you shed more light on what you mean by productization of the enterprise? Maybe can you?
The idea of projectizing the enterprise was the idea of saying, can we use project management tools to do day-to-day operational stuff? And it became quite popular in the aughts. It's fallen away now. But what you then started seeing was everyone talking about, can we make the enterprise agile? And certainly some of the big agile organizations like the Agile Business Consortium and actually Prince2 Agile version 2 both talk about agile at enterprise level. Well, of course, as soon as you start thinking about agile at an enterprise level, what is agile really good at? What does sprints really mean? They're about developing products. So I think you might start looking at a process, an operational process, as a series of products. And so instead of thinking about how do we operate a process, how do we turn a process into individual products that we can swap in and out in a much more modular way, as the technology changes and as the markets change. It just feels like the pace of change is getting faster and faster, and the only way we'll be able to manage that is to modularize more of what we do and make it hot swappable. People have talked about the idea of turning your enterprise into a truly AI-based enterprise as being like trying to change the wheels on the car while you're driving down the motorway. Well, the only real way you can do that kind of is to configure the car so that it's made of modules that if you take one out, the car won't crash. And those modules, I think, are going to be the products that we'll have.
Right, that makes sense. And just given that things are changing so rapidly, and we need to be able to cope with increasing complexity and increasing speed. So maybe this might be the way to handle that. That's really interesting. Also, like the point that you mentioned before of continuous portfolio grooming, right?
Yeah.
So because instead of waiting for the 1 year annual planning cycle, but it's the AI has a good understanding of our strategy. Maybe even the AI was a partner in coming up with the strategy, so it understands that very well. And then it can help you like groom in real time the portfolio. So that's really interesting. So I actually asked AI for help here, and for each one of these, it came up with, I asked it for what are some likely predictions and bold predictions. So I wanna maybe go through some of them and get your thoughts. So a likely prediction for PM tools, you mentioned like maybe because there's a lot of fragmentation when it comes to PM tools. You have like Jira, Asana, Notion. There's so many. ClickUp, Monday. So it's saying that we might see more consolidation, right?
I mean,
and
that's a commercial judgment. The reality is that consolidation happens in every industry at some point. The big players decide that they don't want quite so much competition, so they buy it up. Whether that's Paramount getting bought by whoever, or Paramount buying, whatever. It happens all the time. When I started looking for jobs, everyone talked about the big 8 accounting based consultancies, and there's only 4 now. Deloitte and Touche and all that. But even when I started, those 8 were mergers. Ernst and Winnie joined Arthur Young to become Arthur Ernst and Young, but Ernst and Winnie was a merger. So yeah, of course, I think that's a good prediction. It doesn't tell us anything about what it'll be like to be a project manager. It'll just tell us that the tools we like to use will have a different branding on them.
Yeah. So that's the likely prediction, is that we're going to have consolidation, and I think AI will drive that. So the winners in the AI space will maybe remain, and then
of course, and the niche players will be bought by the big things. Your favorite niche product, whatever it is, and I won't name a few just in case they're all sensitive. They're sensitive about it. But your favorite niche AI software product that really has been built AI ground up, rather than your Mondays and your Asanas and your Jiras, which are basically bolted on ChatGPT or Gemini into an existing product. But those companies will, the big ones, the Jiras and the Mondays, will buy up the little niche players to gain really good quality capabilities to bolt onto their broad generic capabilities.
Right, for sure. And then the bold one, I thought this was pretty interesting. So project management tools as a category will disappear entirely, right? So I guess because work management will sort of be done, like it's going to be at the infrastructure level. So it's the tool will sort of plug into Slack and emails and all of that, and then behind the scenes, it manages work, basically. It manages the project.
Yeah.
So that's a bold one.
I like that, and I like it because I don't think it's that bold. Project, Microsoft Project, gone. It's just like that one's gone, because if you look at some of the big players, perhaps not Jira because they see themselves quite nichey, but if you look at your Mondays and your Asanas, they are really presenting themselves as management tools that are managing, that allow us to, they're collaboration tools, not project management tools, really. Old dyed-in-the-wool project managers like I am will say, well, they're not really a project management tool, they're a collaboration tool with project management capabilities. Well, back in what, 2000, you saw SAP and Oracle and some of their then competitors, which went by the by, but they were creating project management modules within the enterprise resource planning suite. Don't know whether they're still there because I'm out of the ERP market, have been for 25 years, but those were building that in. There is absolutely no reason why you won't. I think absolutely you will have enterprise tier collaboration tools built into. AI needs data, and it needs a big old database, and that database will be a lot more efficient if it all is based on data gathered from one application, which looks at the finance, the personnel, the collaboration workspace, the project delivery workspace, the strategic planning work, because strategy planning feeds into portfolio, feeds into projects and programs, feeds into day-to-day collaboration. So yeah, I think we will see these tools, and whether they're called project management tools or enterprise management tools, or they're just built into the operating system of what we do. Yeah, good prediction. Yeah. Well done, ChatGPT. Or which did you use?
That was Claude. Yeah,
it was Claude. Claude, good.
Yeah, actually, I asked ChatGPT, I asked Claude, and I asked Gemini, and Claude gave the most interesting ones.
Yeah.
Followed by ChatGPT and then Gemini. All right, so just a quick commercial
Gemini
break.
Not just say it will be Google Project Management all the way.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, LinkedIn. I know you're a Microsoft house.
Yeah,
and you're probably your AI is probably listening to us.
I know, and flagging us. All right, so quick commercial break. If you're enjoying this conversation so far, we are beaming this on YouTube, on Substack, and if you're watching from those channels, please do subscribe. It's free to you, and it will mean a lot to us. If you are actually listening to this on podcast on Spotify, Apple, feel free to give us a follow and leave us a 5-star rating if you're enjoying this. And yeah, with that, we get back to the show. So now let's talk about methodologies. Yeah. So right now, there's agile, there's waterfall, hybrid, and maybe some other combinations of methodology. Where do you see like the methodology landscape in 10 years, Mike?
I'm not sure where we'll be in 10 years, but I can tell you what I think the three methodology focuses will be over the next 10 years, or 10, 15, 20 years. So I think we're going to see this isn't really a project management methodology, but I cut my teeth as a project manager partly on business process reengineering back in the 90s. And the purpose of business process reengineering was to say we've got these new ERP tools, and they will manage our business very efficiently and automate our processes. But before we get them to automate our existing legacy processes, let's re-engineer the processes to make them efficient for use by ERP. Well, now we've got this AI set of AI tools which can make our processes run better, robotic process engineering, agentic AI. But the sensible thing is, rather than just throw those tools to automate existing processes that are not optimized, let's redo that. So I think project managers will be dealing with a BPR Mark II type methodology. But very quickly, you mentioned Agile and Agile version 2 and whatever. I mean, I don't know what Agile 2.0 is. If you look it up on the web, you get lots of different answers, because Agile 2.0 seems to be various people's different branded things. Agile 2, Agile version 2, Agile 2.0. Agile Business Consortium, of course, is on Agile 3 now. But I really hope that in terms of Agile and predictive, we are moving away from frameworks and methodologies. And thank goodness we have moved away from Agile versus predictive, or worse still, Agile versus waterfall. I think waterfall's a dreadful term because it's used pejoratively by Agilists. But I think we've got past those debates now, or at least the grown-ups have. And I think what we will start to see much more of is project managers growing up with the idea of project management is a holistic approach, and there's a whole bunch of tools, and some of them the old people call predictive, and some of them the old people call adaptive. But the new, younger project managers call them project management tools, and they don't care where they come from. And they don't care, hopefully don't care, what the framework is in terms of, its history. They just care, is this framework fit for purpose? But 10 years time, I think we're not going to have a methodology. We are going to have what I'm going to term AI native delivery. That is to say, agentic AI structures are going to drive the delivery of our projects, and the project managers and AI are going to have to fit in around one another in some way. I have no idea what that is going to look like, but I spent quite a lot of time reading the work of and speaking with, and in fact, meeting up with, because we're not very distant geographically from one another, Martin Paver. And if your audience are interested in the real future of AI in project management, they should follow Martin on LinkedIn and read some of the free content that he's putting out. Next Gen Project Assurance is his latest publication, but he's also written Next Gen Risk Management, Next Gen PMO. But I think my conversations with him lead me to think that there is a real prospect that we will go beyond taking AI and using it to make the way we do things today more efficient and more effective, but actually basically having a series of AI tools that delve into the requirements, they delve into the database, and they then drive the management of the project, and therefore the management of the project is fundamentally predicated on the way the AI is constructed. I'm not going to use Martin's terminology because I don't want to kind of steal his thunder on this. Some of it is out there and some of it is not yet out there. But follow Martin Paver if you really want to see what the future could look like in the deep, distant future. He would say it sooner than we think. I am skeptical as to whether all of it will be available to us in 10 years' time, but I do think that we will see a world where AI is fundamentally driving things. So, for example, in risk management, at the moment, if we use AI, we kind of ask the AI what the risks are, and then we'd ask it to evaluate, scenarios or whatever. And I think AI will be constantly scanning the environment and constantly scanning project data, recognizing patterns and saying that pattern suggests that this could happen, and therefore AI will adjust the plan. It will redeploy people, and at some point, whether it's in 10 years or not, we will have learned to trust it enough that we'll be pretty hands off on that sort of thing. That's the reality. And I'll leave it to your audience to decide whether they think that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, but speaking of which, if you have any questions or if you have any thoughts on what we are saying, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will get to questions towards the end. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting that Mike, what you mentioned was pretty much what Claude mentioned. So in the likely, it mentioned, of course, agile waterfall debate will become irrelevant. We're already seeing that happen now. So we're gonna just move to basically we have this arsenal of different things that we can deploy to solve whatever problem that we have in the moment.
I do prefer the term toolbox to arsenal. The world's got enough weapons. Let's use tools.
For sure. Then the bold, it says a new methodology emerges that's specifically designed for human AI hybrid teams.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know what? I think it's about 5-10 years ago that NASA actually put the first AI tool, gave it an email address, and as part of a project team. That's happened.
Right. And actually, I signed up for an agent, and basically, so the agent has an email, and it can just go off and do things, and it has a name and all of that, and it's basically an employee. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You can browse, and you can click and do. So that was really fascinating, and it can do things on your behalf. But like sometimes you just need to log in. But whenever I get all those login messages, I don't, because I'm worried about security and data.
Yeah.
All right. So now the next topic is AI in 10 years, and I think we've already been covering this. But one thing that I think will happen is that we will have more and more agents, and agents will become even more powerful. So I mean, we're already seeing that happen. So I don't really think like this is a leap of a prediction per se.
No. AI. I mean, if you think about AI in phases, I think phase one was assistance tools that can do stuff for you, and we're there. Big tick on that one. We're using it. Most people listening to this will be very familiar with getting help from Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. AI integration into existing tools, I think there's a big tick on that now. You look at all the big project management, portfolio management tools, players, whether they're the dedicated tools like your your One Plans and all of that, or whether they're the collaboration based tools like Asana and Jira. They've all got AI built in. Some of them fantastic, level of integration, high capabilities, some of them weaker. But that's a big tick, I think. What comes next is, AI agents being packaged in that really do have high levels of capability and can hand off to one another. And therefore the human in the loop is about marking their work between stages, not about receiving something from an agent, processing it, and then giving it to a new agent. They will just chain it together. And as I say, true AI delivery will be when organizations realize that human in the loop is just reading it and saying yes. There will be a danger period when people are doing that before it's reliable, because humans, we're lazy, and mistakes will be made, but they'll get shaken out, because the fact is that AI doesn't get tired, it doesn't get bolshy, it just grinds through the work. The same reason why, if every vehicle on the roads were a AI driverless vehicle, it would cut road deaths to a fraction of what they are today. The technology we have today would do that, because you get to a junction if four AI cars get to a junction, they're going to talk to one another and negotiate, and none of them's going to get impatient and say, "Fuck it, I'm going." Because but humans, we do that, and then there's a pile up and the junction's closed for an hour and people lose. So I think AI is already very good, but we will be too trusting of it too early. We'll make our mistakes and then we'll sort those out. I'm actually very optimistic about what AI can achieve, but of course there are lots of doomsday scenarios which are also plausible. But I think in project terms, we'll have in 10 years' time, AI really taking over a large part of the project space, which has consequences, of course.
Yeah, speaking of consequences, so what do you think about this? That as AI is sort of eating up what project managers do, the people that will be most affected, at least initially, will be junior PMs, right? So maybe 60 to 70% of what junior PMs do today will be handled by AI. So what do you think of that?
Firstly, the obvious ramification of that is, how are tomorrow's senior PMs going to learn their craft? Because I'm sure, like me, you learned to be a good, experienced senior PM by being a poor, inexperienced junior PM for a while and then learning stuff. That's a problem. But I think the reality is that we're all at risk, because junior PMs today, I mean, a lot of what junior PMs and PMO staff have been doing for the last 10, 15, 20 years, AI can already do most of that. That's today. There is on the, if you like, the technical aspects of project management, there's very little that AI can't do. So we like to think, and you hear people saying this or you read people saying this on LinkedIn all the time, but don't worry, AI will never take over from humans. The human touch. Project management is 80% communication. I've said it. I'm sure you've said it. I'm sure everyone who's listening has heard someone say it if they haven't said it themselves. And it's true. So we're happy because we're humans and we communicate. We're good at communicating, and AI is crap at it. That's rubbish. That is absolute, bull. Because firstly, we've got a generation of kids growing up on social media who aren't talking to each other. Their communication skills will be dipping. That will be exacerbated when, schools realize that you can create one-to-one teaching ratios by delegating chunks of the teaching to AI. So while we are teaching our children without teachers, which actually could be very good for their intelligence learning, the AI will be learning to communicate better. And of course, there are organizations in the UK, there's Human Dynamics, which are using AI to monitor project management communications and feedback on morale and concerns about risk, so into the center, which is great. But of course, in gathering all the data about the way people speak on projects, AI is learning to communicate in a project management like way. So I believe that fundamentally that in 10 years' time, AI will be a very capable communicator. It will know how to influence, it will know how to manipulate if it chooses to, and doomsday scenario, it may well. But it will be, so actually, I think that, if you wanted to write an email to a stakeholder about a sensitive issue, I bet you would ask Claude to draft it for you, and then you would top and tail it. But I think if you're honest, you'd say, actually, it doesn't need a lot of work. I just need to make it sound like Mukhtar rather than like Claude. Well, we know that you can create agents that already sound like Mukhtar because you can feed it, transcripts of your own speaking or it's transcripts of your writing. So fundamentally, I think I think there is one thing in the project ecosystem that is not going to be run by AI in 10 years time, or won't be possible to be run by AI in 10 years time. And by the way, I'm not saying that AI will do all this, because we will maintain control. I think in 10 years time we'll still be demanding our roles as project managers, but we're probably not needed for a lot of it. But the one thing that will be last to fall is that humans will be making the decision on how to spend the money of the corporation that they're in charge of. So fundamentally, the one thing AI will not be doing in 10 years' time is politics, with a small p. It probably won't be doing it with a big P either, which is a shame, because frankly, humans are making a mess of it in many countries. I say I like tools better than I like the Arsenal methodology, but if a fool with a tool is still a fool, then an arse with an arsenal is still an arse. I think it would be, perhaps we might be heretical, but we might be in safer hands with AI running the world than with some of the politicians we've got now. Although you're very fortunate in Canada, so.
Well, I don't know about that, but because anyway, let's not get into politics right now.
Sorry, actually, we shouldn't really do politics, but I can't help myself.
Yeah, no, it's part of our everyday life, so I can understand. But I think the question still remains now. So if AI is able to do a lot of what we do, even handling communication, that's supposed to be like the last bastion of what we do, then what does that mean for the PM job?
I don't know. I would say that all the PM project managers will be left doing is podcasts, but Notebook LM can do that for us as well.
Interesting.
There was a time when monks would have said, "Don't worry, they'll always need monks to write books."
Yeah.
We don't. We've got printing machines, and now we don't even need to print them. We can distribute them digitally. It is not out of the question that the whole world of project management as we know it now will be radically different. Maybe not in 10 years, but in 50 years' time, you may not see project managers and project teams. You may see a portfolio director making strategic decisions, and then an army of agents fundamentally tasking contractors to do the specific work that needs to be done. And of course, those contractors will not need to be humans when we're developing software, but of course they will still need to be some humans on site when we're building bridges. That said, when we're building houses, probably largely robots. Robots can build houses now. You just need to, code in the specifications, which AI can do. You need to feed it the ground conditions, which of course technology can measure and AI can assess. So really and truly, I'm not sure about the 10 years figure, but there will be a time when I think the profession that we might call people project managers, but they won't be doing what we do now. I don't know what they'll be doing. Yeah. It'll be a legacy. It'll be a legacy name. It's a term.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know this is a tricky one, and I'm more of an optimist. I still do believe that the profession would stay, but I'm not just quite sure in what form. But I'm just gonna throw out some stats. So PMI has this recent study of the talent gap, and they predict that by 2035, we're gonna have 65 million PM professionals. And this is taking into consideration the AI equation, right? So some people might argue, of course, PMI is gonna be optimistic about it, but I still, I don't know. A part of me just still feels that we are gonna have a relevant role. Actually, this brings up a good point. So right now, we're seeing a trend of organizations wanting to become flatter, right? So removing just removing middle management. Like this is happening a lot, and lots of layoffs. And when I see that, I can't help but think, okay, the executives are still there, the leadership is still there, the people that are doing the work are still there. If you're not removing middle management, you need people that will be able to coordinate activities that are going on, right? And that cannot be left to the executives, right? Because they're too busy. I mean, I've seen that a lot of times. It's like, okay, we don't need a project manager. The VP is like, cannot just give the focus needed.
Yeah.
And then they hire a project manager. So if you're removing that middle layer, I see an opportunity for more PMs. Whether
but then they'll just be doing a middle management role. So that's right. Not a change. Look, firstly, I would say that I am not being pessimistic. I don't feel that you say you'll be more optimistic. I actually don't think it's pessimistic to say, maybe the project management role won't be there, because if you look at it from the point of view of the people who are listening to this, who will be at various stages of a project management career. But even if we take the youngest person listening to this, let's say we've got an 18-year-old who is thinking about studying project management or thinking about studying business and moving into project management. For you, there is, a good number of years, maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe only 5, but there's a good number of years doing good project management stuff. But the key is you will learn so much doing project management that if you are, for want of a better word, agile about it, you can then morph your career. I don't see that people who have project management skills will ever be in want of a good career path. It just may not be doing what we think of now as project management. Right. The people who say, you know what, all I'm prepared to do is learn project management and then stick and do that, those people, they will be the brontosaurus of the 21st century, because if you're not prepared to change and the world changes, then you're going to get left behind.
Right. No, that's well said. Yeah, because even for many of us that became project managers, we didn't even start out with the project manager title. Like a lot of us became accidental PMs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even if you pivot to something else, like that skill set of driving, of execution, like that is needed no matter what your title.
And a lot of us who became project managers are no longer project managers and thriving, because we're taking those skills and I'm writing books about stuff that isn't project management. You're helping people build careers. I've seen people in the chat who are active project managers, but also extending their journeys in different directions, which is giving them options.
Right. Amazing. Let's talk about certifications in 10 years.
Oh yeah. What?
What's your prediction?
I don't know. Look, PMI is big. APM in globally and particularly in the North America area. APM here in the UK, very big. IPMA, IAPM, Prince2, Scrum.org. They've all got a vested interest in selling certifications. But what are certifications really good for? They have two purposes. They have the purpose of learning how to do stuff, and they have the purpose of getting a job or a better job or whatever. The problem with certifications like, frankly, PMP and some of the others is a lot of people are treating them as a way to get a tick in a box that is going to get them a job, and they are rushing through and they are not learning it. The way you learn project management, yes, you do need to do some reading, you do need to do some training, whatever. Frankly, come to online PM courses, do some training. But the reality is that we learn most of the stuff on the job. The value of a PMP certification to most people is it will get me a job. And why is that valuable? It's valuable because recruiters are lazy bastards. And they would rather say, oh, well, if you've got a PMP, you must be good. Tick. We'll interview you. AI recruiters, because their jobs are on the line too. AI recruiters hopefully will have a much deeper data set than did they pass the PMP 5 years ago. I mean, and basically PMP is binary. You either get it or you don't. So someone who scrapes by doesn't have to declare that they scrape by. They say, oh yeah, my PMP. And we know that people are getting their PMPs that don't have PMI's required time served experience. So they've just learned, and it's easy. I know people, I don't want to trivialize it, but frankly, anyone with intelligence can read the books and pass the exam if they put the work in. Doesn't mean they understand project management. It means they understand the books enough to answer the questions. And we also know that some of the PMI's questions, frankly, the correct answer is the one in the books, but it's not what most project managers would do in some circumstances. We see that on LinkedIn frequently with example questions. So AI recruiters, on the other hand, will be able to look at your CV and look into the databases and say, oh, you were involved in XYZ project that delivered 3 weeks late. However, your competitor was involved with ZJA project and that was 2 years late. And so it will have all that data about you. And one tiny data point is, did you pass your PMP 6 years ago? But actually it will, for internal promotions, it may even have access to the email chat where your colleagues say, you know what, Mukhtar's a good chap. I really trust him. He treats the team very well. And it will also have access to Mike. Oh God, nobody really likes him because if you look at the chat about Mike, it suggests that he bullies his staff. He expects stuff that can't possibly be done and then criticizes people for it. So obviously Mukhtar's the better candidate for the job. Hang on a moment, Mike's got a PMP certificate. Yeah, but that's not nearly as important as the fact that Mukhtar's staff like to work well. Like to work with him and stay late because he asks them to, not because he tells them to. So, I think, I don't know how PMP, APM, whatever will accommodate that changing world. They're rushing to incorporate AI-based certifications, but the PMP, it changes in July. But does it include anything about working with agents, programming agents effectively to do the job you need, using agentic-based tools? No, it doesn't. Well done, PMI, keeping up with the times. Frankly, neither does APM and the others. I think they're going to really struggle, but they will struggle because they are multi-million-dollar corporations that have to continue, and they have to sell memberships, and they have to sell certification examinations. So they will fight. They will find a way. But I think, like for many years, PMI and APM will be trailing the profession, not leading it. Sorry, APM. Sorry, PMI.
Yeah,
and I've got friends at both.
Yeah, I have my PMP from a long time ago, so I might be one of those people that you refer in your example. But also, so
and I don't, by the way.
so a couple of
chip on my shoulder.
Yeah. No, a couple of things came to mind when you were speaking, and one of them is that right now AI can pass the PMP in flying colors, right? Because AI can pass the bar exam. And like many of these other exams, so the PMP should be a piece of cake for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I think you can. When I did my PMP, I think I went into a center to do it, but I think right now you can do your PMP online.
Yeah,
right?
but the proctoring system is designed to stop you having ChatGPT next to you.
Okay, but what if you have because. Okay, so I started playing chess, right? And I'm fascinated with chess. And from what I like, so chess.com is like the dominant platform. But there's still a lot of incidents of cheating with chess.
Yeah.
Right? So technology. So this is also the thing. Like when it comes to crime, like a lot of times crime is ahead of in technology, like a lot of technology on the crime space, right? So I won't be surprised if you can have some sort of tool on that can help you browsing, clicking, and all of that, with passing the PMP.
Let me tell you a story related to that. So for a good couple of years, I was getting so I run a Facebook forum on project management, and I was getting people trying to join and post stuff about passing PMP first time and all those usual things, and not just PMP, but PMP is relevant because I had a contact at the PMI, and I would send him these posts and the links to the people who are posting it. And his background was in law enforcement, and he, on behalf of PMI, his job was to chase down these bad actors and put them out of business. And I said, look, let me put you on my YouTube channel to talk about not the secrets of how you do it, but the fact that you do it to give people confidence that PMI is on top of all this stuff, and that the people who try to buy their PMP certification are going to be frustrated by PMI actually sorting this out. His boss wouldn't let him, interestingly. Yes, PMI, I'm calling you out on this. And actually, funnily enough, I sent him one recently and it bounced. I think he must have left. But the reality is that PMI is aware, or has been aware, of the threats to its exam integrity. But you're absolutely right. Early adopters of any technology are crime and pornography, by the way. When the internet first appeared on our radars, right, if you remember back in 2023, when everyone started to become aware of ChatGPT and AI, back in the mid 90s, everyone became aware of this internet thing. And so I was at Deloitte and I went to see some of the experts in internet stuff, and I said, Peter, as an ordinary individual, how do I kind of keep up and find out what's going on? And his advice to me was follow the porn, because he said porn is always the first adopter of every new technology. It's also true, by the way, of AI. Porn is using AI. We know that, as is Grok. But I didn't take his advice because I was too shy. I was, like nerdy kind of kid, didn't want to do that. And I don't actually recommend people follow the porn. But the fact is, you're absolutely right. Grey sectors, whatever they are, whether they're crypto, whether they're distribution of drugs, whether they're distribution of pornography, whether they're exam writing services. And by the way, there's a lot of those out there that will write your exams for you, sit your exams for you. They are all using the technology very smartly. Whilst, the good people like you and I, we just kind of ask Claude, for the answer to a question, or you did, but then you declare it. I didn't. I very deliberately, you kindly sent me an indication, sorts of things we talk about, and I kind of sat down this morning with a cup of coffee and I thought about them. And I thought about these things for a long time, and I kind of crystallized my thoughts and said, what will I say to you that's provocative but defensible, but actually interesting and relevant? And but yeah, the bad actors, humans are going to human. And that means that 99% of us are going to be good to one another, and 1% are going to be in it for themselves.
Right. Yeah. Well, a really interesting conversation on certification. So I hopefully the best. Well, I mean, it all sorts itself out, in the end. But it would be interesting, like, if it becomes a major problem where it's like you can't quite trust the PMP, which is the gold standard, then what happens? So, but I think, like, just given the stakes, that PMI will probably take steps to maintain the credibility of.
Absolutely, they will. Although I have to say, I have to take issue with the premise that PMP is gold standard. Okay. Not because I've got anything against PMP, but if you're looking for a kind of gold standard of professionalism, you probably better to look at the APM's chartered thing. You need a few years experience and an exam to be a PMP, which is not nothing, but you look at what you need to get to be a chartered member of the APM, a fellow, or not a fellow, that's by invitation, a charter member of the APM, and that's a lot higher standard that APM sets. So if you look at the people who, you look at the APM members in the UK, then if they're a chartered member, you know that they've got the grey hairs, they have been there and done something of real substance, and their peers recognise them. So APM has a series of exams, but then above them is that charter member, and that's probably the nearer to a gold standard. And the fact that that's people in a room talking to you to make a decision kind of precludes some of the AI cheating as well.
Interesting. I didn't know about the process, for the APM certification. Yeah. So is it international, or is it mostly just UK
Internationally available, but and they do have kind of outposts in some places where APM is more highly regarded. But remember, they do have 3 tiers of examination. What is it? PFQ, PQ, PMQ. But then on top, the top tier is by written application and interview, and that's designed for very senior professionals who have got a lot of experience. And so I think that's probably more of a gold standard. But yeah, PMI will defend themselves, I'm sure, because they have to. If it gets out that people are passing the PMP by asking their tame AI API to take the exam, then it will kill their credibility. So they will spend a lot of money to make sure that's not possible. And the bad actors will spend a lot of money to try and find their way around it. It's the Red Queen thing, the faster you run means the others have to run that faster. And it's the biological fight between plants and animals on the one hand, and their parasites. Parasites find a way to, if you like, lig off their host, and then the host finds defense against the parasite, and then the parasite evolves. It's the same relationship. And arguably, big fleas have little fleas on their backs. The parasites feed off PMI, and then PMI feeds off the profession. So, and the profession feeds off society, and society feeds off the planet, and the planet feeds off the sun.
Well, on that very cherry note, let's speak about project complexity in 10 years. What are your thoughts about that?
Project complexity. Okay, I think AI, here's another area where AI is going to be, I have reason to be hugely optimistic about AI, because humans being humans and having limited brain power, our response to real world complex projects is to try to simplify them and I'm a physicist by training. In mathematical terms, we try and linearize them. We take this big, complex, nonlinear mess, and we look for bits that we can pull out, understand, and treat as simple. And we hope that if we break our project down into lots of simple little bits, we can run each simple bit and get the full result, which sometimes happens, but sometimes goes spectacularly wrong. AI works in a very different way. If you try to predict the weather using what were modern techniques 5 years ago, you had masses of calculations based on very complex formulae and data sets. And it would take a long time to do the calculations, and you'd get, some sort of statistically significant answer, which would be right on some reasonable proportion of time. What they've discovered now is if you get AI to look at a smaller data set, it can produce faster answers that are more reliable, because it's not trying to use simplified equations to understand a complex system. It's basically forming patterns, and it's recognizing patterns. And so I think AI will help us to do much more complex projects much better. That's my hope. And then it will then break out those complex things into bits that can be simplified, and it will hand them over to simpler agents to do that, while the more complex agents deal with the integration at the top. The stuff that humans, frankly, are not capable of doing, because we can't think fast enough. We don't have the level of memory and processing power that some of these agents will have.
All right. So I hear you. We would have the capability to manage more complex projects, but do you think projects will become more complex? Because, like, you tend to hear this, there's always going to be complexity will increase. I've been hearing this for a long time. But do you think complexity will actually continue to increase? And if so, why?
Okay, so you've got to imagine that the range of projects by complexity is going to be something like a bell curve. Most of them will be kind of mid complexity. There'll be a few very simple projects, and there'll be a very few high complexity projects. And those are the exciting ones to work on, but the ones that often have long overruns and cost overruns, schedule overruns. I'm not sure the peak will change much, but I think the outliers at the high complexity end will increase, because one of the things about humans is we are ambitious to solve problems and to discover stuff. And so we'll take on projects at the maximal level of complexity and difficulty that we can possibly manage. And if we have better tools, we will take on tougher projects. We will try to go to Mars. We will try to put more complex robots on Mars. We will try to send more complex rovers to the outer solar system. We will try to figure out how to fold proteins to cure cancer. We will try and do all these fantastic things that we can't do now because it just takes too long. There was a time when it took a week to sequence one strand of DNA, and now you can do a whole human genome in an hour. So we've solved the complex problem of how to simplify how to create tools that make it simpler for us to do things, just as we solve the complex problem of how do we make a hole in a piece of stone. We used to get a stick and some grit and rub it to make a hole in some stone. Now we've solved the complex problem of doing that quickly and efficiently and accurately by having power tools. Well, the more tools we create, we can build on that. So we build complexity on complexity. So what would have been a complex problem 2,000 years ago, which like 2,000 years ago, it would have been a complex problem to produce everything I can see in your background. I don't even know whether it's real, but let's assume it is. But everything in my background. Now it's a trivial problem. You go down to the hardware store, you buy some boards and some brackets, and then you go to the bookshop and you buy some books, and it's all there. All the complexity of making a book, of compressing sawdust into a cheap piece of board, of pressing metal into a bracket, all that's done. So the way that yes, there will be more complex projects that are more complex, but they will still be the outliers, and the majority of projects will probably be very similar. That's my prediction.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I like the point you mentioned whereby it's like, just humans by nature, we are, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Humans by nature, we are ambitious, right? And also the fact that our technology has evolved to help us, solve more complex challenges. So, putting those two together, it's logical that we will continue to pursue more and more complex projects. So that makes sense. What do you think about this prediction that there will be a sort of a sub specialization within the PM space, maybe called mega complex project specialists or something, that would evolve and these would be PMs that are particularly good at or trained at handling these mega complex challenges. What do you think about that?
I don't think that's a prediction. There are those people now, and there will be those people in the future. They don't have a name. They don't call themselves anything other than project managers. Maybe some of them call themselves program managers, but we can argue all day about the distinction between projects and programs. But the reality is there are people out there who can deliver the most complex projects. There are people, at NASA who can send people to the moon. Now, I'd like to think I was a pretty decent project manager. And I'd like to think that, having read some books and stuff, I could have a stab at thinking about how I might go about it. But nobody'd hire me to do it because I haven't got that track record. But there are people out there who have got that track record, who have developed it over the years. There are people who can build, these phenomenal bridges over gorges, or, join one landmass to another. There are people who can do all these projects, and they are the exceptional project managers who have been in the industry for a long time, have worked their way up, had the opportunities, and shown that they have both the combination of experience and training on the one hand, and, raw intellect on the other. And plus, of course, the personality traits that it takes to actually coordinate the people and keep you cool when things go wrong. I mean, we've all, project managers who are a bit nerdy about project management watch videos of things like, aligning two ends of a bridge when they finally get together and that final piece has to go in. That I'm not sure I could take that stress, but there are people who do it, and it works, and it's the work of a massive team. It's it's a city worth of people, and a city worth of people's intellects doing it. But at the end of the day, there is one human being who is in the coordinating role, and they are those people you just called, mega project managers, and they exist today, and we will always need them. The really difficult question is, will they be replaced by AIs?
Yeah,
don't know.
And Mike, do you think that is across, is industry agnostic? Like, that caliber of PM who can manage like the top 0.1% of projects that are very complex. Like, does that transfer from, I don't know, maybe healthcare to sustainability to construction, or is it within?
It's a really good question, because I have always said that, project management is the skill, and then part of that skill is to learn enough about the sector in which you're managing projects to operate effectively within that context. There are those project managers, those high caliber project managers in every sector, whether they're creating the software that operates, a warship, big complex warship, or whether they're the project managers who are, delivering a massive bridge, or all those different areas. I think when you get to a certain level, your experience is so contextualized that you will find it much easier to get work in that. But I think those people probably could move across, but whether they would want to, whether the industry would trust them to, I don't know. And frankly, the honest truth is I've not operated at that level. I don't have close friends who have operated at that level, so I can only speculate. But I suspect that once you get to a certain level, there's enough. There are few enough people at that level in your sector that when jobs come along, you can find interesting work in the sector where you, or an adjacent sector to the one where you've worked. So I doubt we'll see these mega project managers, whatever they call them, moving from commissioning the next aircraft carrier to building the next bridge. It doesn't feel quite likely.
Right. Let's pivot and talk about well-being and burnout.
Yeah.
So right now, according to a LinkedIn study, project managers suffer from the highest rate of burnout. According to the study, 50% of project managers either are burnt out or will burn out. I don't remember exactly. It's a LinkedIn study. How do you see things playing out over the next decade?
Okay, so first of all, that surprises me that project managers have the highest burnout rate, and I suspect that is actually a function of LinkedIn's sample, because obviously the people who sign up to LinkedIn are going to be weighted towards certain industry sectors and certain professions. So there aren't going to be kind of many nurses and teachers on LinkedIn, and therefore their burnout level is not going to be measured. But yes, project management is a stressful thing. As a result of a period when I had a bit of a meltdown, I ended up researching stress and writing, and years later writing a book about it. I think I'm confident. I'm optimistic about the impact of AI on a profession, but I don't think it's fundamentally going to change the fact that some people overwork themselves, some people are overworked by their organizations, and projects are going to be stressful, and even AI is going to make mistakes and run things to the wire. So I think we're going to have high levels of stress, but I think we may well have a little period across different industries and different professions of some sort of kind of existential dread, because people take what you and I are talking about to mean that they're not going to have a job in 5 years' time. And some people that's going to prey on their minds, and they're going to let it prey on their minds, rather than putting their energy into thinking, how can I prepare myself for the next 5 years? They're going to be thinking, oh my God, I fear the next 5 years. But yeah, I think it's always going to be a difficult profession to work in for some people. And I noticed, I don't know whether you're still on the call, but I noticed flashing past the comments was James Evans, and James Evans has made a special study of psychological safety in the project environment. And I grew up in a project environment where some of the project leaders were not into what we now call psychological safety. They were into basically beating people up for not delivering. We need to be kind as project managers. We need to be kinder to our teams, and we need to be kinder to ourselves, and we need to push back against AI not being kind to us as well. So if you're still there, James, Oh, Bina's joined the call. If you're still there, James, give us a thumbs up on the chat just so I know, or something. Not that I'm actually looking at the LinkedIn feed, so it might not come through on the StreamYard feed. But yeah, if you're interested in psychological safety, follow James Evans, because he's got a lot of interesting things to say about it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fascinating. I'll definitely check that out. Yeah, so even from my personal experience, I would say it's very, very environment dependent, because I've been in environments where it's like you're given so much responsibility, you're very accountable, but you don't have the support, right? It's almost like you're being set up to fail. And like it's easy to just burn out in those environments. And then in other environments, you're given the support, you're empowered, and it's easier, you enjoy the work. And then there are other environments where you're supported, but you're not given the power or the authority to it's almost like you're a glorified admin, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it will be very, very environment dependent, but I would like to see maybe more awareness, because also I spoke to somebody else who is, so he has a project management background, and I think he was going to study psychotherapy. Like, so he was pursuing a master's, or like he wants to actually become a psychotherapist, and this is because of his experience as a project manager, right? So and I think his thesis is going to be like about stress and burnout in the project management space. So I thought that was really fascinating, because it's really niche, and maybe there are some nuances in the project management space. Yeah, sorry, it seems like you wanted to.
Yeah, I was going to say it shouldn't be niche. I think that's the whole point, really, is that it's not like sustainability. You shouldn't say, "Oh, I'm a sustainability project manager," or "I'm a project manager who's into psychological safety or understanding stress." It should be a core competence. Come on, PMI, come on, APM. Let's actually have all the syllabus for all of your different core exams, making sure that people understand the importance of sustainability, understand the importance of creating a culture within your team that makes people feel safe to say, I'm struggling, safe to say the project's struggling, safe to say that's wrong. So, I mean, more strength to the person you're talking to for finding something that interests them and deciding to change direction and move there and do some research and thinking about it. And it's a hugely important subject. But the fundamental thing is every project manager should understand the impact of the culture they create on not only on the people that they are responsible for, and we do have a duty of care as managers and leaders, but also for the results they get. At the end of the day, I fundamentally believe you treat your team well, you will get better results for the project as well as a healthier team. And frankly, if you're getting better results for the project and you've got a happier, healthier team, you will be happier and healthier too.
For sure.
Not vicious circle, virtuous circle.
It goes both ways. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the comments and questions. So please remember, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. So this is from Anand. Hey Anand, with AI automating reporting, tracking, and forecasting, what do you think will remain the core value of a program manager in the future? Do you see AI reducing the need for PM roles, or actually elevating them into more strategic decision-making roles?
Well, Anand, I think, as we said, initially, I think, yes, it will elevate program managers to a more strategic decision-making role. We need human in the loop on all the stuff that AI does. And it certainly shouldn't be making our decisions for us, but good AI should be presenting us with the tools that help us to understand the situation better, and therefore allow us to make better decisions. But the reality, I think, of developing AI is it will get better and better at making the same choices as we would have made. And there will come a time, when I don't know, but there will come a time when AI is constantly able to make the decisions we would have made, or perhaps even decisions that are better than we would have made, in terms of their outcomes. And then What is the role? What is the residual role for project or program manager? I don't actually know. As I say, I think there will come a time when we see AI, native AI project delivery. AI will be tasking other agents and human and artificial agents to do tasks that are part of the project, and we'll be then reporting back to both humans but also AI-based assurance tools. But I see that as a positive, because then we'll get more projects done faster and better, and that should lead to a better condition for us as human beings, I hope.
All right. So thanks for the question, Anand. Jude is just saying hello. I think Jude. Yeah.
Hi. Nice to see you alive. Oh, I think you mean live. I've been alive ever since I was born, and I remain alive, and I hope to see you for a long time. So thank you very much.
Nice.
You use my videos for students. Excellent. So they're actually my students, not yours.
Yeah, nice to see you alive.
Drop me a line. Let me know what videos you're using. I'm always interested to know how my videos are being used in teaching.
This is from Ashish. Which tools from AI and others are going to be critical in the coming days, I guess, in the future? Something you can speak to? Like,
I'm not actually going to answer that, and I'll tell you why. Ashish, firstly, because I'm not a tools guy in the sense of software tools. I've never, been that interested in the different tools, even back in the days when, it wasn't much choice and it was Primavera or, GAMP Pro or whatever. It's just impossible to keep up with it. The tip I always give is forget what tools are on the market, define what it is you need to do, and then search for tools that can do that. Define your needs in two tiers: things you have to have and the things that you'd really quite like to have but you could live without. Find a short list of tools that can do everything you have to have, and then look for a slightly shorter list of the ones that can do some of the things you'd really like them to be able to do as well. And then my tip is to try out 2 or 3 of them with your team and pick the one they like best. Forget price, forget additional capabilities that weren't in your specification list, which might be a whole long list of things. Choose the ones your team like best, because the toughest thing about creating a new tool is getting people to adopt it. And if you can choose a tool that people want to adopt because it's the one they like, then that jumps you ahead of the queue. And so what if it doesn't have some of the capabilities another tool might have? You didn't put them on your list of things you need, so it doesn't matter that it can't do it. What really matters is whether people use it for the things that matter to you, and therefore pick the tool that your team likes best. And also, frankly, pretty much every tool these days has AI in it. So what's going to be critical in the coming days depends on what you need to do.
Right. And just another point there. So with vibe coding now, it's, many people are just creating tools like SaaS applications. And I know that, many of us PMs, we usually have, like, a lot of these tools are great, but a lot of times, like, you wish that they can do this one thing, so you might as well just try your hands out on vibe coding. It's a good way to gain experience, right? Because in this day and age, if you can, the person who really has command of AI is the person who's winning. So try it out, solve a pain point, and whether you actually you're successful in eliminating that problem or not, you're going to learn, and you can even just share your learnings along the way.
That's excellent advice. One thing I would say though, vibe coded tools, great for you to use, but Enron taught us that spreadsheets tend to be riddled with mistakes, and organizations that enterprise tier at enterprise level rely on spreadsheets have real endemic risks. Likewise, if you kind of build your own tools and you spread them through the enterprise, you're actually taking a big risk. There is still a value in human developers that actually know how to optimize software for enterprise use and make it reliable. But to get something done on your own desktop and meet the needs of your specific project, vibe coding, brilliant thing to do. And frankly, for a lot of things, you don't even need vibe code. You just just create agents by talking to your favorite AI tool and getting it to build and building an agent that just does simple things.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, developers are still gonna have jobs, but I think they're also facing an existential, like, the same discussion that we're having right now is also happening there. And there's like, okay, junior developers, are they still as relevant, and all of that.
I think there's a whole load of developers thinking, you know what, I need to get better at refactoring. If I can refactor vibe coded stuff really well, then there's a job for me. But if all I can do is write the same stuff that the vibe coding can write, then there's not a job for me. So yeah, it's another case of the higher end developers are still going to be in demand. The low end early career developers are going to find it hard to find jobs. So how are they going to get to be high end developers? So they have the same problem that project managers have.
Yeah, and I think this is the overall theme, right? So if you look at like each profession or craft, like there's this pyramid of what's the word now? The pyramid of competency, right? So at the very bottom you have people that can do that, the easy to do tasks, and those are going to be eaten up by AI. Like the further up you go, so we wanna sort of move up as much as possible, and also learn and keep abreast with AI, right? Right. So this next question says, if in 10 years AI and PM are collaborators, how about the organization's structure? Interesting question.
AI, cloud organization structure. Well, I'm not sure I buy into your analysis, Mukhtar, that we're just going to get rid of the middle, because they will become the middle. So we'll still have a middle. I suspect what we'll actually see, although they won't be on the org chart, is that fundamentally agents will occupy some of the places on what is currently an org chart, or they will, or if you take, Chris Jones at some position in the org chart, part of their job description will go to an AI, and part of it will go to to a human who is picking up a little bit of Lee Smith's responsibility, while the rest of Lee Smith's responsibility will be picked up by an agent. So you'll see more agents and fewer people at every level, probably, from the call center up to the C-suite. It may be that some of the C-suite roles will be filled by agents. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's I don't know. There was somebody, because I think a lot of people think that other people's roles will be automated, but not them. There's somebody, like, I don't remember the clip or something where it was like, oh yeah, I think, all roles will be eaten by AI except, and the person mentioned the profession, it was a venture capitalist or something, and the person got a lot of backlash for that. Like why?
Everyone says I'll be the last one out. I'll be the one that switches out the lights. Someone will. I actually had a boss who claimed to be the last person in his previous organization at one point. But if your game plan is on hanging on with your fingernails till the organization shuts down and throws you out, then that's not really a survival. Well, it might be a survival strategy, but it's not a strategy for thriving. Your business, your personal career strategy should be to think, where do I want to be in the next 5 years, and what do I need to do now to make sure that I've got the best chance of being there. And then, if you think about that as a series of user stories for what you need to be able to do, you also need to get into backlog grooming and say, right, well, I a year ago I had made this list of things to do. I've done some of them, but there's still this left. But are they still the right list? Right. And groom your, so that concept of backlog grooming is one of I think the best things that Agile has given us, because it applies to so many things.
Right, for sure. This comment from Prashant. Hey, Prashant, I got contacted randomly offering they will be taking. Okay, so I think this was when we were talking about people. Eating on the PMP.
So Prashant, the advice I would give you, and I don't have an email address for you because the one I had bounced, so I'm trying to figure out what to do. But I can see you're obviously a PMI member because you've got your PMP. Get in touch with the PMI and give them as many details from that person as possible. There is there is a part of the PMI that takes that very seriously. And as I say, the guy I used to know, who may not still be there, was a trained former criminal investigator, and he said we have ways to track these people down and put them out of business. So the more information you've got that you can pass on to PMI, they will take it seriously. And I used to send, at one point I was sending 3 or 4 a week of names, and at some point I said, do you still want me to send them to you? And he said, oh yes. Oh yes, we do follow them up. So they do take it seriously. So if you get contacted, if anyone listening to this gets contacted by anyone offering services, the guarantees of exam passing of any form, then pass it on to the organization whose exams they're offering to help with, and that organization will no doubt take it seriously.
All right. And Bina is saying hello Bina, hello Sandra, good of you to join us. And that's it, we've gone through all the questions. So
don't worry, Sandra, it's being recorded, I believe.
yeah, it's gonna be, you can, it's been recorded, so if you just go back on the event page, it's gonna play all the way from the beginning. All right, so now we want to wrap up with the rapid fire recommendation section.
Excellent.
All right, are you ready?
I am now, yes.
All right,
you can ask me about a book, I think.
Yes, what's one book you love or recommend?
Okay, I have to recommend, and one of the, so Project Land Goes to the Movies, edited by Dawn Mahan and Jerry Manis, is a series of 22 essays, chapters. Each one takes a book, so it takes a movie and draws a project management lesson from it. It's fantastic. I wrote a chapter about Apollo 13. James Evans, who was on the call earlier, wrote a chapter about The Martian, I think. And it's fantastic, and it's available anywhere you buy books, but Amazon is always a good place. And it's a great way to learn project management insights from experts who have thought very carefully about what lessons you can draw from movies you will probably know. So you'll probably find this, you'll look through it, and the first thing you'll do is try and say, seen that one. Oh, I haven't seen that one. And then you'll read the ones you've seen, but read them all. They're great. Project Land Goes to the Movies.
Project Land Goes to the Movies. All right. What's one app you love or recommend?
I'm going to go with, I don't have a project management app, sorry. Or indeed a project management project. I do have project management. I'm going to go with BBC Sounds, because, if you're stuck on a desert island, as long as you've got 5G connectivity, there's just so much really interesting entertainment and information. BBC Sounds app. It's a podcast app, but BBC content, fantastic. I'm British. I love the BBC.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So I guess the next one was going to be, what's one podcast you love or recommend? Same.
Yeah. Well, I'm a YouTube man, so I'm going to go with podcasty, YouTubey things. So if I can't recommend my own YouTube channel, I'm a huge fan. If what you're interested in is optimism about the future, of a channel called Huge If True, Cleo Abram, and she talked to Andy Weir, the author of Project Hail Mary, recently. She's talked to Sam Altman. She basically finds stories about things that are going to affect the future. And investigates them and presents them very well. If, on the other hand, you believe that people who fail to learn from history are condemned to relive it, then The Rest is History, which is a podcast, but it's also a YouTube channel, is fantastic. The Rest is History. Just learned so much from that. Great entertainment too.
Nice. All right. And what's one productivity hack that actually works for you?
My OATS principle. I use it every day, every week, every year, every month, every year. And it derives from psychology, human psychology, and from project management. Whether it's a day at a time, a week at a time, a month at a time, I do it quarterly as well. Ask yourself, what are the outcomes I want by the end of the day, by the end of the week, by the end of the month, whatever. When I know what the outcomes I want to achieve are, I then think, well, what activities do I need to carry out to achieve them? Then I think OATS principle, OATS, outcomes, activities. Next is T for time. How long do I think each one's going to take? And then once I figure that out, how am I going to schedule it? S for schedule. How am I going to schedule it into my day, into my week? And every every week I create a notes plan, and I write it on a scrap of paper and keep it by my desk. And there you are. You can see that little purple line there. That's this conversation. So this is my notes plan for the week, which I made on Friday. And the last thing on Friday, tomorrow night, is to make a notes plan for next week.
Nice. And is that structured day by day, like the 5 days of the week?
I do it 5 days a week, and I divide my day into 3 chunks. But you can do it on whatever granularity. Start off by doing a notes plan for tomorrow, and do daily notes plans. But then when you get used to that, do weekly. But I also do, actually, I don't do quarterly. I do 4 monthly notes plans. So I do divide the year into thirds, and I ask myself. So I'm coming to the end of my first third of the year. So towards the end of the month, I will do a notes plan for May, June, July, August, and then I'll have another one for September, October, November, December.
I love that. And when it comes to the outcomes, do you have a number that you recommend that you stick to?
Depends what time scale you're working over. But I mean, I divide my day into 3. So most granular I'm going to get is a major outcome per third of the day. But as you and I were chatting, at the moment, my days are filled with writing. So I have one outcome for each day, which is to write a chapter of the next book I'm writing, the current book I'm writing.
I love that. And I love the simplicity of it as well.
Well, in that case, you want Brilliant Time Management, or How to Manage Your Time, published by Pearson.
Yeah. Nice. All right. And the last one, when you're stressed or overwhelmed, what helps you reset or relax?
So in practical terms, actually dropping stuff, saying no, learning to say no, and dropping stuff. So I got a bit stressed a couple of weeks ago, and I basically cancelled every meeting in my diary except this one for April, in order to focus on the thing I thought was most important. And that actually just lifts, a load from your mind. But in terms of actual proper relaxation, I'm a kind of movies guy. I just really love just watching a movie, which is why I was so pleased to work on this project. He says, plugging Dawn's book again. But yeah, I enjoy watching a movie. Walking a dog with a podcast is also quite fun.
Yeah. And just speaking of movies, because I'm very fascinated with project management behind the thing, like how airports are managed, like how a movie, so I'm like that's also something that like I've been thinking about lately, like this movie that you see, what went on behind the scenes, and like how
absolutely
project, come to be,
I mean, a lot of the things we take for granted have masses of project management behind them. Everyone, I mean, it's a commonplace thing that everyone's got one of these in their pocket, but nobody actually understands how it works, because there's so much in it that even the person who understands actually what makes the screen display stuff doesn't understand how it does the calculations, and they don't understand and that person doesn't understand how you package that up in a chunk of glass and metal. But the reality is there's a project manager that ran the process of product development that created the processes that bring this together. Project management is the figure you gave, I think earlier on, if PMI says that we'll need so many million project managers, it's not surprising, because everything we use and everything we do day to day has a project management somewhere behind it. They might not be called a project manager, they might be called an executive producer of a movie or whatever. But I also love behind the scenes stuff on movies. How do they build the sets? How do they edit the stuff? It's fantastic.
Amazing. And just before we wrap up, Prashant was saying, can we know what's on your pad? The pad that you showed with all those.
So basically, so the bit at the top is the time up until about 9 o'clock. Just a few little tasks get done, admin stuff. It used to be a few years ago, I would get up at 5 every morning and I'd be doing a big chunk of work before breakfast, but now I don't, because I'm getting old. Then there's the morning, and then there's the afternoon, and at the moment you can see that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, writing, all my writing's done. Look at that. And then tomorrow, I'm out for the day. I'm having a day off.
Nice. It's nice to see a lot of things crossed out. Like that's
Yeah.
I like it's
Oh yeah, there's a
satisfying.
huge psychological benefit. That's Teresa Amabile's research showed that people feel happier if they tick stuff off during the day. They go home from work feeling more fulfilled, which is why we should, as project managers, create more milestones rather than fewer. Give your team lots of little milestones, and then they can see the progress they've made and go home feeling I've achieved something. Whereas making the same amount of progress but without a milestone to mark it, they go home and say, "Oh, I did stuff all day, and I don't feel like I've done anything really." I mean, So we have these days when we know we've been productive all day, but we don't feel very satisfied because we don't seem to have achieved anything. That's why I think about writing a book as writing a series of chapters, because then at the end of each day I've achieved something. Whereas if I didn't mark it up in chapters, then at the end of the day, I've made a bit of progress on the book, and that's a bit tedious. So really what you want to do is, as project managers, is turn your project into many, many, many milestones. It's better for control and management, but also better for motivation.
Right.
And your teams.
And even taking this full circle, like, because a lot of us feel stressed, but if you actually see that you are accomplishing things and that you're moving forward, I think like that could help with that. So it's not just the big milestones, but the small milestones like every day.
Absolutely. Look up the research of Teresa Amabile, and I think that Teresa doesn't have an H in it, if I remember correctly. But Teresa Amabile did the research, and it wasn't about projects, but it basically shows that people go home from work more satisfied or less satisfied, depending on how much they are aware of having achieved. And it's not about progress; it's about achievement, and which keys back to back in the 50s, David McClellan said we have three needs in the workplace: need for achievement, need for affiliation, need for power. And of course, milestones are a big tick on the achievement bit. Having a coffee with a friend deals with your need for affiliation, and sadly, telling off your subordinates seems to ring the bell for some people, but it shouldn't. We shouldn't let it. We can be better than that.
Yeah, for sure. This has been such a fascinating conversation, Mike. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure the audience did as well. If people want to reach out to you and if they want to connect with you, how can they do that?
You're on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Good idea to say to me, "Hi, Mike. Saw you on Mukhtar's show or whatever." That way I kind of know how you get in touch, but LinkedIn is a good way. You can always go to the YouTube channel at online PM courses, all one word. You can find me at onlinepmcourses.com as well. I'm easy to track down, Mike at onlinepmcourses.com.
Nice. All right. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will speak to you same time next week. All right, then. Take care, y'all.
Not me. You're not speaking to me next week.
No. Yeah. No, me, and we would love to have you back.
You and your audience.
Me and somebody else.
Good.
Bye, y'all.
Excellent. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.